this eczema, this is not me, this is not how my life is going to be. I think that's so important to not identify as to separate the disease from the person that you are, and saying, no, this is who I am. This is something that is not part of my life. It's not going to be part of my life forever. And to become that person that you are on the inside.
Because it's very easy with today's culture of like accepting your body image. Like, you know, there's a whole dissemination of this idea that, you know, if you're overweight or if you have issues in your vitiligo or if you have issues with your skin, it's okay to accept your body as it is, and this is a part of you, and to accept it as your identity. And I didn't want to accept it. I said, I don't want to look like this, and I don't think you have to look like that.
Hello friends, today I'm speaking with Bradley Marshall. He is a fellow eczema sufferer, or I should say ex-eczema sufferer, because he has healed his eczema with a carnivore diet. He's consuming mostly meat, and he has shared his experiences about diet, exercise, sauna, and going to the ocean to heal his eczema. So I'm really excited because this is my first ever podcast episode about eczema, and I'm really grateful that Bradley agreed to come on the show as the first guest ever. So please enjoy this conversation with Bradley.
I saw in one of your posts you said you went vegan for a while, and you could see the comparison of your hands and your arms were just really red, and now that you're on carnivore, it's cured up nicely. So it's just amazing.
It was crazy on the vegan diet. Like, I was constantly in like a healing crisis. You know, I was thinking it was clearing up, but it was just getting worse. And I thought like, okay, this is like a detox symptom, but it just like an endless row of detox symptoms. Like it never actually cleared up. So
yeah, it's hard to navigate. Like if you're not used to any of these diets, say you're starting the carnivore diet or you're starting the vegan diet, you expect other people say to you like, there's a period of time where it's going to get worse before it gets better, but how long is it going to stay worse before it gets better? You know, and it's hard to navigate that. I remember when I was taking herbs, like Chinese herbs, I was trying all these things, and like people would say to me, you got to give it time. You got to let it work for 30 days. And I waited, and then it just got worse and worse. I'm like, you know, screw this. I'm just going to stop. Right. The carnivore diet is seriously the only thing that worked for me.
Yeah. How was that for you in the carnivore diet? Like, did you have this healing crisis as well? Did it get worse before it got better?
Yeah. So there's a video I put up on my Instagram where I'm like, there's so many videos where I'm in the sauna, but there was one where I was actually like, I juxtaposed it with the one where I'm completely healed. So this was like at the 2-week mark of starting the carnivore diet. So I think 2 weeks in, like it was healing, but it wasn't, I was still so far from being completely healed that I was wondering I was at the stage of still wondering whether it would work. So in that video, you can still see I'm so dejected, and it took me roughly 7 weeks to really reach a point where my skin was like almost 90% healed. And to be honest, like when I started posting videos of my skin drastically healed, like I was still honestly like in pain at that stage, although my skin was healed completely. Like I kind of call it ghost pains. And I know like, you know, like there's other people out there who actually said that they had the same things. Like if your nerve endings are constantly being bombarded with pain for 3 years indefinitely, then as soon as you're healed, your nerves still need time to recover. So it's almost like when people get their legs cut off and they can still feel their leg like a ghost limb. That I kind of felt that for another 4 months after I healed, like I was still in pain. And it's only been like in the last 2 months where I've really been just so much exponentially better.
So do you still have this feeling of, I do get these like paranoia of like what I put in my body. I'm like, can I really eat this? Like, is my skin going to get worse again? Like that. Do you have that as well? Like everything you eat, everything you touch, everything you do, you're like, you have this constant fear of your skin getting worse. And again, like it was before.
Yeah, well, if I eat outside the carnivore diet, like if I eat anything other than meat, I have a level of apprehension as obviously my body reacts. So I'm not really like I'm experimenting nowadays, but having said that, I really don't diverge very far from the carnivore diet. So really, I'm just having like I find it quite like I saw your a few videos of yours where you're eating chicken, and to me that's too exotic. That's too like experimental. Like I don't want to touch that because I know it affects me because the chicken eats grains and I'm allergic to the grains in the soy that the chicken eats. I know Michaela Peterson's the same. She doesn't eat chicken or pork. She finds eating fruit is actually less inflammatory than eating pork and chicken.
Yeah, I heard
So
that as well. Yeah. So
yeah.
what I did always look for the like a pasture raised chicken. So they're still being fed partly grains, but I think I do better if they're like pasture raised and they can eat like worms and grass and whatever else chickens eat outside. But yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. Like what does your current diet look like and what are you trying to introduce? What are you trying to eliminate? Maybe go into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Just quickly before I start that, like, yeah, so I do have a level of apprehension every time I eat any food that's outside of meat. So I really just, at the moment, I'm just eating lamb and cow, really. So, and occasionally allow myself to have a coconut and maybe an apple, but that's the level of carbohydrates that I have. That's it. Like an apple is like pushing it for me. Coconut is still keto. I know avocado is keto as well, but I've been finding that when I eat avocados, it inflames me. So really, today, yesterday, the whole week, I just been eating just meat. And just maybe a week ago, I had maybe a coconut, and that's it. So really, I don't diverge at all from the carnivore diet. All I'm eating right now is just meat. Uh, and yeah, if I go outside of that, definitely apprehension. Like I tried a few weeks ago a carrot, and the person who said to me like, "Would you like to try a carrot?" Like, yeah, great, I'd love to try a carrot because I just wanted to experiment. I didn't realize she squirted it with lemon. So as soon as she said that, she was like, "Oh, I put lemon on there." I'm like, "Damn." Because lemon's like
Yeah.
citrus, and I know that oranges really affect me, like, and so citrus as
Yeah.
well. So that night I was really itchy, but I have a way of dealing with it now. So my whole routine, answering your next question, is basically when I'm itchy, I go straight to I have this home gym set up, and I go straight into the gym, even if it's like 3 a.m. in the morning. If I can't sleep, I know that if I try to push myself to sleep, I'm just going to start scratching. So instead of doing that, I actually go to work out. And that way, after you finish working out, your body is filled with endorphins and you just feel so relaxed to the point where you don't feel as itchy. So that's
Yeah,
my
I've seen
method.
you do
Yeah.
that. Like you have a video I think about where you're working out in the middle of the night because you're so itchy and you can't sleep, and
Yeah.
that that seems like a really positive way of dealing with that itch with something so horrible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Because you're
you,
angry too, right? Like you're angry and you want to
yeah.
express that anger somewhere too.
Exactly, exactly. So regarding this apprehension that you have, and there's also kind of a social. I felt like there's really kind of a social isolationist aspect to this whole thing because when I first started, you can't go out to eat anymore. Usually, when you
Mm.
meet friends, like they want to get some food at some point, and you always have to kind of hold back and be the one who either excludes himself from the social interaction or bring your own food or something. Like it's definitely a lot more effort. Like, what was that experience like with you?
Yeah.
Like with your social group? How did that go?
Yeah. I think today I'm very much used to it. I, like someone wanted to meet up with me for lunch and I said, "Oh, I actually don't go out for lunch anymore. Do you mind if we just maybe go for a walk on the beach? Because we both live close to the beach." And so she's like, "Yeah, sure." So most times when I'm catching up with friends, like I try to invite them to do something like walk on the beach or walk through a park or do something else other than eating. But if I have to eat, like say it's a birthday with a family, extended family, I try to choose like really high-end restaurants, which I know that I can ask them to, because a lot of the low-end restaurants, they always cook with all like seed oils, canola oils, and so the high-end restaurants, I can say, look, I've got an allergy to oils, and I get the meat option, and I say, please don't put any salt, because I don't trust even their salt. Sometimes their salt is not exactly salt; they've got other additives to it. So I bring my own, like I'm really like pedantic with it. I bring my own salt, which I know it's not going to react to me. I just hide it in my my mum's purse or something, or my pocket. And then when it's served, I just sprinkle my own salt on it. And then I ask not to have any canola oil. I'm saying, can you cook it just on a separate grill? Because I've got a lot of allergies. And so far doing that, if I select high-end restaurants, it's been mostly good. I know there's a few restaurants I went to where they're like, oh, what kind of allergies is that? Like, we can only eat meat and you don't have canola oil. Like, will you die? And I'm like, look, I won't die, but I'll be in a lot of pain and for about a week, and it's just really not worth it. Like, I'd rather not eat at all if that's the case. And so it's hard. It's really hard to find restaurants that can cater to people like us who have really specific dietary requirements. But there's restaurants out there, go-to restaurants, which I've found I live in Melbourne, so places in Melbourne where I know that if I want to eat out with a family or other people, I go to those specific places. But some of my friends are not too happy about that because they're pretty expensive. Right. But apart from that, I really just don't go out to eat. And there was a whole period of time for like 6 months when I was doing this where I would write, like, I always love writing in my diary because like I find it really cathartic to just journal, and really, like, part of healing is to really express yourself so that there's nothing stagnating inside your mind. So I really try to just holistically unleash everything within my mind onto the paper. And so when I'm writing these journals, like I was writing stuff like, the whole process of eating with people is a bonding, social bonding, and there's a sense of belonging when you're with people. There's a connection that you make. Like in psychology, they say when two people are drinking together, like to suffer together is how bonds are made. So, if like as an experiment, if two kids steal something or if they do something that they shouldn't together, they're more united that way. And so suffering together, like that's why people love drinking together. And if just eating together is such a social, intrinsic interaction in our society that the moment you separate yourself from that, you feel so alienated. And for a long time, it was difficult to deal with it, just sitting on the side. But I've done it now for so long that like most of my interactions are like, I'm a musician as well as so when I'm working, so that's like my social life. Like I meet people while we're rehearsing, and I socialize while I'm rehearsing. I socialize when I'm doing jobs, like at a wedding. So most of the times I don't have to worry about like going out to eat these days anymore. But if I do have to worry about it, there's always that alienation factor, which is uncomfortable. And
have you found that once you explain like to your friends or colleagues like what you're going through or why you're doing this diet, like maybe showing them even pictures of what your skin looked like before and
most
now?
of them that most of them follow me on Instagram, so they know exactly what I'm going through.
I found for me that was really freeing and really important to share this publicly and with friends, because I always used to try to hide it, like as a kid and as a teenager. Like it's so uncomfortable. You don't want anybody to see it. You just feel embarrassed about yourself, about how you look. And so I was always trying to hide it, wear long sleeves, even in summer. And I never wanted anyone to see me really. And once I started opening up a bit more about this and actually being open about this disease and sharing that with friends and sharing this journey of healing, it has become a lot more freeing as well. Like plus the fact that I'm actually healing, which is of course very helpful as well.
Amazing. I can definitely relate. there was so many periods of my life where I was at high school, and I never really was public about my eczema until literally 6 months ago. Like throughout my whole life, it's always been somewhat of a burden that I've learned to live with. When it was bad, I would always cover it up with long sleeves, and I'd wear long pants during the summer when everyone else is wearing shorts. So it was something that, and I'm sure yourself, we just had to learn to live with. But it's only until I healed myself that I said, you know what, this is a story that people need to hear. Because, I was fooled, for lack of a better word, by the medical system for 20 years. And I thought that was the only hope. And really, it's, a lot of people aren't willing to try something as drastic and crazy as just eating meat. So they kind of need people like us to take the first steps and do the work and test it with our bodies, because, it's not dangerous, but it's scary territory when it's not really documented medically, and people haven't taken those first steps, like Edward Shackleton going to the Antarctic for the first time. It's like scary, and people don't want to do those first steps. But now that they can see us, people like us, doing it, it gives them a level of reassurance. And so that's why it's very important for people like us to be talking about this online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was one of the main reasons, like, because I was inspired by your story and by other people talking about this. I was like, okay, the least I can do is at least document my journey, and then maybe somebody who's also on the same journey can get something from that, inspiration or whatever it may be, some strength to push through.
It's funny you say that. I appreciate that. When I was going through 3 years of suffering, and it's really been like, it started in 2020 March, so it just is almost 3 years. So March just passed now is kind of like the anniversary of me going into this purgatory, this hell 3 years ago. So when I was in that state of suffering, I was listening to people like this girl called Abby, who runs a podcast called Eczema Conquerors. And I would listen to her story about how she lived in Hong Kong and how it just became so bad for her that she would be looking out of a 10th story window and just, thinking the most darkest thoughts because she just couldn't escape her own body, and how traumatic it is, and there's a whole lot of stories there, like how people don't just feel levels of suicide. Like suicide's bad enough. Like it says that 36% of all people with eczema toy with suicide ideation. No, sorry, they're 36% more likely to kill themselves, more likely, and 40% more likely to have thoughts of suicide ideation. So that's terrible as it is, but they were talking about on the podcast how some people even have homicide ideation because they get so dark and frustrated with their own lives that there's stories of people, mothers with eczema, looking at their kids, begging their husbands to please take away the kids because I just am in such a dark place right now that I just really are feeling, homicidal. It's quite it's very dark what people like us have to go through, and so it's amazing to hear other people's stories, and you kind of forgive yourself when you're in such a state of suffering. And I'm not like excluded from that. Like I remember I was in such a state of suffering, I was looking at people and feeling so bitter and envious. These people out there, they're my age, and they're just going out and falling in love, and they've got nothing wrong with them, and I'm here in my bed and I can't move my neck, and I'd feel so miserable. And so it's just so reassuring to hear people's stories like Abby from Eczema Conquerors. And so, I'm exactly the same. I couldn't not share my story. I had to share it as like passing the torch on. Like, it gives you so much hope when you see people telling people how they've healed. And, in that Eczema Conquerors podcast, which she has on Spotify, like not one of them have gone through the Carnivore Diet, but they all have a number of ways that they've healed themselves from topical steroid withdrawal. Like a lot of them have done no moisture therapy, which is a Japanese. I forget the doctor who does it, but it's intense. I couldn't imagine doing something like that. I'm grateful enough as it is it's hard enough as it is to just cut out everything but meat, and I'm grateful with that. I don't want to cut out all moisture. But you know what? Having said that, now that I'm kind of healed, I actually haven't been using creams at all. So
I was going to ask you about that. Actually, yeah.
I'm not using any steroids. I'm not using any Eladel, which is not a steroid. It's like it blocks calcineurin in the face, which it's not as serious as steroids, but it still causes cancer and lymphoma. So I stopped that too. And there was a period of time when my face was flaring up as it was withdrawing. And today I don't even use moisturizer. And if I do have to use something, I use coconut oil. But even then, I don't use that. It's so liberating.
It's very liberating. Actually, I started not using moisturizer about 2 weeks ago. And
really?
It was
how is it?
I was still having symptoms, so I was not cleared up yet. And I thought like, man, this cream, like, it doesn't really matter. I can put it on. I don't put it on. It doesn't heal my eczema. It doesn't really cure it. So I might as well try not using it. And exactly. So the first week was so dry. Like, it was like my skin was falling off, basically, my arms. Awful. And it was really bad, but I also felt like it was cleansing, and my skin was able to actually kind of shed like the old skin cells, the dead skin cells, and rebuild something new underneath. And once those 1 to 2 weeks was over, like it did get a lot better, and I think my skin was then able to produce those oils again that are needed to make the skin smooth. And it's been very interesting to not use moisturizer, and it's very liberating because you're not dependent on this.
That's right.
This thing. How's it been with your doctors? I think you mentioned at one point you went back to your doctor, and he didn't really believe that this diet actually cured you. Like, what was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was insane. I went in, I think, because I wasn't checking eczema at the time. I was checking something else. I had basically an angioma, which is basically non-benign. It's non-cancerous. It's just like a little dot that was just growing. And I just wanted to see if it was worth cutting out or not. And I just wanted his opinion on it. And I've just left it there because it doesn't need to be cut out. I think it's natural. And even with the carnivore diet, I'm kind of monitoring to see if it goes down by itself. But that's another whole... I don't know if it's going to go down, but it's just there. But anyway, I went in for that. And then he said to me, because he was monitoring my eczema for 5 years, 5 years maybe. And he was like, how's your eczema? Because I haven't seen you about that for a while now, I think 6 months. And I said, let's have a look. So I took off my shirt and I showed him, and he said, wow, it's all cleared up. What are you doing? And then I said to him, has diet ever played a role in curing your patients? And I don't think so, he said. There's no clinical studies, there's no literature medically that say that there's diet and eczema is related. I said, I might be your first patient then. And I opened my bag and I had a book, a copy of The Carnivore Code by Paul Saladino. And I said, this healed me. And he said, his face changed, his whole demeanor just went sour. And he said, look, you can't afford to follow these gimmicks, these false narratives that you see online, and it's just really wacky science, and you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And really, I mean, you might think it's helping you, but I think it could be placebo, and you're not really exactly cured. Like your arm's still a bit dry there, and you could still benefit off Dupixent, which is a biologic to help your eczema suppress the immune system. Well, I know some people say it doesn't suppress the immune system. It suppresses one part of the immune system called interleukin, but it still causes conjunctivitis in the eyes and still causes liver damage and all of these things. It makes you put on weight and makes you really sensitive when you go out in the sun. So it just didn't appeal to me. It was amazing that was his response. Yeah, you could still go on Dupixent. Even with all my skin cleaned up, he said he still recommended his biologic.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's unbelievable. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like I can't really. I don't think he's. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe he's been, he studied medicine for 10 years plus, and he just doesn't see anything outside of the literature he's been taught, and he's not really open to anything that doesn't come from a medical source. Even though Paul Saladino's book, he's a doctor.
Right.
And some people say he's a doctor of psychiatry. He's not a doctor of medicine. Like, there's so many people out there. Sean Baker, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Kiltz, like they're all doctors, and Dr. Paul Mason in Australia. And there's so much clinical studies that I was talking about in these podcasts. Of like Paul Mason was talking about this Sydney study on LDL levels and heart and the heart and atherosclerosis, and basically the study was basically done in the 1980s, like in 1984, something like that, and it only was released now in 2017. And the only reason for that, they said, why did it take so long to get released? And basically the people running the study said, well, basically we didn't like, and this is a quote, we didn't like, how did they say it? We didn't like the outcome of the study. So we didn't see a reason to publish it. So yeah, it's so factual, and seriously, the doctors just have to catch up.
Yeah, it seems absolutely crazy. Like even your doctor, he's being presented with evidence like right in front of his eyes, and he's seen you before, he's seen you after, and he
Yeah.
still can't believe he can't even fathom that diet might be the factor here. That yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I was also when I went to my GP, the only thing I got was either a cream, steroid cream, or pretty much a lotion. Like that was the only thing he could prescribe for me. And I always told him, this is not working for me. It's just suppressing my symptoms. It's not really healing me, but they're just not trained in any other way of thinking. So it's really sad that and so many people still rely on them to cure their autoimmune issues, and clearly it's not really working because so many people are sick. And it's very sad. You also mentioned I've seen you in the sauna like quite a lot of
All the
times.
time.
Yeah, all the time, right? And you have this routine where you do the sauna, you go into the ocean, and you work out, right? Those are, besides your diet, those are kind of the three things that
Those are my four pillars. Yeah.
your four pillars of health, right? Yeah. Could you
Yeah.
talk a bit about how important those other three pillars are for you, for your health?
Yeah, it's interesting how much carnivore plays compared to the other four. I try to utilize them all as equally as I can. I find if I stop going into the ocean, then it really impacts my skin. It really helps me. Like the salt in itself, even if it's not cold water therapy, like during the summer, the salt really replenishes my skin. And I think the benefits of salt have been known since, I think, even the Bible. There's like, I'm not overtly religious, but there's an actual psalm in the Bible where this guy kind of has something like eczema, and he pleads to God, how do I cure this? And he gets a message from God saying, you need to just bathe in the Jordan, in the ocean or in the river, and for 10 days. And he said, look, I'm willing to fight wars. I'm willing to kill people to cure myself. And this is what you asked me to do. And God responded, I'm just asking you to bathe. That's all I want you to do. I'm not asking you to kill anyone. Just go into the water. And so he did that. And then by the 10th day, he was cured. So even if that's symbolic or whatever it is, that goes to show that even in the time of the Bible, like, it was known how replenishing salt water can be for your skin. So yeah, I just keep that up. I'm not going every day anymore because it takes up a lot of time. So I go every second day. So I have like off day, on day, off day, on day. And I'm not looking for, it's summer here right now. Oh, it's just past summer, it's autumn now. So it's getting colder. So yeah, I'm getting ready for winter.
Right.
Apart from that, yeah, sauna, it's like if I just go into the ocean, I find the combination of sauna plus ocean, like you're just sweating out all those toxins. And a lot of just saying that, like, you're sweating out your toxins, like, I think a lot of doctors who are trained in their literature would roll their eyes at that statement and say there's no there's no scientific evidence that says that sweating is releasing toxins, but I don't know. Like, I really think that it works because, I mean, I kind of my body's the proof, but like I just feel so much better when after coming from the sauna. I should really do some clinical research on it, but like just from anecdotal evidence from myself, like I feel great having sweated out. Like sometimes when I put coconut oil on, like all of that white coconut oil comes out, and it's just, it looks nice to just release yourself of that from your body, and then I wash that off afterwards to go into the ocean. Yeah, it's just, if one of those pillars aren't practiced, I really notice a decline in my overall health. Yeah, so carnivore was really the last pillar for me, but it's really, all of them really contribute in their own way.
Yeah, I feel like even if there's no evidence, but something makes you feel really good, like the sauna, and it makes you just feel alive and healthy afterwards, like that's the right thing for your body then to do. Like that's just as just worth as much as medical evidence. If you feel good after something, after the food you eat, after something you do, it makes your body feel good. That's worth a lot, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really would like to go more into the ocean, but it's kind of difficult here in where I live in Germany. So I've been looking at
Oh,
some places in Spain actually to spend some time down there and to spend some time near the ocean to be able to go like once a day or every 2 days like you do, because
yeah.
I always felt that the sea salt really helped my skin. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Interesting.
hope.
It's always quite cold here in Melbourne. I always wished I lived closer to the equator, so even in summer, it's still cold. I'm
Yeah,
not sure how cold it is in Germany, but I'm sure it's more cold.
sure. Yeah, it does get pretty cold here in winter, but I wouldn't mind. Like if the ocean was closed, I would still go. I would do a cold plunge, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's a bit far away from here, so
yeah.
hopefully
Oh,
I can get a bit closer at some point.
yeah. I'm so fortunate enough to live only like 15 minutes away from the beach. So, because the showers, like just chlorine from the shower, I find really irritates my skin. So I try to avoid having showers every day. Like I have it really just like once a week. I know, like, so, it's a bit awkward admitting that, but like,
Yeah,
chlorine
I
in the
do too,
shower is just
actually.
awful. It really dries you out. Like I noticed as a
Yeah.
kid when I used to swim in the chlorine pools, like I'd feel terrible. Um, and the chlorine is basically that in your shower. So like I've got a chlorine filter, and it does help still, but it's not as revitalizing as the beach. Like nothing is as good as just salt water, natural water from the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I started the no moisturizing routine, I also cut the showering down to like once a week
Yeah.
because I just noticed it dried out my skin like crazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would wash with I would buy distilled water. You can buy distilled water here in the supermarket, and it's basically doesn't have any minerals in it. It's just completely pure. And so
Mm.
I would wash with this distilled water, and I noticed that my skin
Interesting.
was way less inflamed when I did that compared to the tap
Yeah.
water that I was using before. So
It's funny you say that because, I was thinking like a few months ago, like, after I was already healed, I was thinking like, if I want to go overseas, like to America or Germany or whatever, I don't have my filter. I can't really take the filter with me because it's a big filter. I was thinking, how do I shower over there if it's really cold? I'm probably just gonna like go to the store and buy bottled water and just like use that because I
right,
don't wanna,
yeah,
I don't wanna like use the chlorine. It's the chlorine is that bad that it makes my skin instantly just dry. And even having said that, like hot water too is doubly bad on top of the chlorine. So if the chlorine makes me dry, the hot water just makes it even more dry. So every shower I have is always cold water.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't had
Same.
hot water I haven't had a hot water shower in I think a year to 2 years.
Yeah, all right. Do you not drink the tap water? Do you drink mineral
Yeah,
water or?
I drink filtered water. So so there's this filter I have called it's called a Kangen water machine, and basically it filters out the chlorine, and it actually like ionizes the water in such a way that I forget exactly what it does, but from what I've been told, like my sister is a real advocate for it, so she's the one who got me onto that. It's basically like trying to capture what it's like in rivers, how they have like a charge, electric charge, when it's going down the river. And so just drinking stagnant water from a bottle apparently is not as powerful as having water that's flowing. And so what it does is it tries to like reintroduce that voltage inside the water, which is, it's strikingly interesting. I haven't actually done enough research to see how it all works, but that's the water source I've been drinking. And my sister says to me, you know, you constantly talk about the carnivore diet, and you constantly talk about sauna and exercise and the 4 pillars, you know, and ocean, but you don't talk enough about Kangen. I guess the reason why is because Kangen is quite expensive. It costs seriously like $5,000 to buy a machine, and I'm just fortunate enough that my sister already had one. And so there's a whole plethora of different opinions on it. Like some people are saying it's a gimmick, it's a pyramid scheme. Oh, you don't want to believe that. And I don't know. I'm in two mindsets about it. Like I can't say if it's like, you know, like I don't believe that it's exactly working, but at the same time, I don't want to like go off it. Yeah. So I'm sure it helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the water I'm drinking. Basically, it's chlorine filtered, it's fluoride filtered, and it has this voltage induced inside it. So it's a really wacky water.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I might try that at some point, but for $5,000, I don't know if I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. People listening are like, this guy's gone crazy. He's carnivore diet. He's Kangen water. Oh, what else?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you're sick, you gotta get a little
try
crazy
everything
to heal. Yeah, you try everything. Yeah, that's it. And that I noticed. I thought back to this point actually. That was last December when I made the decision to heal, which was a very important step mentally for me, because I got to a point where my eczema was just coming back. It was getting so bad that I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to heal my body, whatever it takes. I'm going to do whatever it takes to heal. Doesn't matter, you know, if I have to walk to the end of the earth, basically, to heal. And yeah, that was just so crucial for me to be able to push through like really hard parts of the journey and come out the other end, basically. So I think, did you have something like that, like a mental strength like that?
It's always been, you know, like I think only the people who suffer like us, I mean, people can empathize, but they really don't understand how difficult it is. I mean, even doctors are surprised. I remember listening to like this podcast with Abby, the Eczema Conquerors, and she was talking about how doctors were so surprised when they did this kind of quality of life measurement. So basically, they measure the quality of your life on a scale from 0 to 1. So if it's 1, it's perfect. If it's 0, then it's like awful. And people who had cancer rated their life at 0.3 quality. And the people who had eczema also rated it at 0.3. And the doctors were just baffled. They said, why? Why are the quality of life so low if it's just eczema, it's just rashes? And so even the doctors who study like medicine, study eczema, still have no idea and still can't really, like, they can empathize, but they really have no understanding of how bad it can get for people with eczema who really just can't move. You know, you're ashamed of the way you look. You don't want to see people. You just want to stay inside. You can't move. You can't, like, I couldn't play the piano. I couldn't even teach the piano because it was just that bad. It gets horrible. I mean, imagine it all over your face. Like, I was just so fortunate that my face was still like not as bad as some of the people I see online. It got all bad all over my body, but my face was always, I was using the Aladel and never got to the point where I was ashamed to even leave the house. So I know it can get just horribly bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two.
So sorry, to answer your question, you were asking me, did I go through these periods? Like, yeah, I did. I was reading all these books on like survival books. I was reading like the journey of Edward Shackleton into the Arctic, and basically he got lost for 2 years. And his story was that his ship got caught in the ice and got trapped there, and so his whole crew had to walk on the ice and then feed off the seals and then try to find their way. Like, no one was going to find them because there was no like radio communication, so they had to find their way back to like the land that's not Arctic. So they were on these small little canoes and they were trying to traverse the middle of the ocean. They had hypothermia and all their feet were frozen with frostbite and they were dying, and they just had to go on this whim of hope that they'd survive, using like the sun as a way to calculate the direction of that they're hopefully traveling in the right way. And it's just so inspiring. So when I was going through like 3 years of hell, I was just reading these books saying, if they can do this, I can do this. Because it was obviously really bad. And so there was times where I couldn't sleep all night. It would be like for 8 hours I wouldn't get like a second of sleep. I'd just be lying there, like I couldn't even lie still. I was just like shaking because it was so itchy and debilitating, and it would just take over, like thousands of ants crawling all over me, or like the burning sensations. And so I would be thinking, this is horrible. And, at times I'd get really emotional and say, why do I have to suffer for this? But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to find a solution. So it was really hard to get through. I was constantly jumping from one idea to the next. Like before I came to the Carnivore Diet, I was saying to Dr. Kiltz in his podcast, like there was all these different things I was trying. So like before I start describing them, there was all these books I was reading. So that Shackleton book, Mount Everest book, people get stranded there and who have the courage to not just, because, they were describing how they were just lying on the top of the mountain and dying. And there's a description from this book called Into Thin Air. And basically he's lying there dying of frostbite, and it's slowly making him weak and taking him away, and he feels so relaxed, and he knows that if he just relaxes, he'll never wake up. So he says, and he has an instant flash of seeing his kids and his family. He says, no, I have to get up. And there's a description of him like looking like a corpse, but he's still getting up and moving, and it's so miraculous that he managed to survive. And so there was these stories I was reading of people getting lost in the Amazon, people getting lost in the desert, who have the hope to continue on. And it was almost like I wasn't lost on Mount Everest, but I was lost within my own body. And it was my own journey of trying to keep afloat this vessel, this ship, as a metaphor, my body sinking, and try to keep it afloat when there's so many holes in it making it sink. And it was extremely hard to remain not just buoyant in the ship of my body, but in the ship of my mind. Like as soon as I lost my own sanity, I'd lose everything. Like, as the statistic I said before, 36% are more likely to kill themselves. And it gets very dark. So I said, I can't allow myself to sink. I have to remain positive. I've got to get through this. And there's a whole period of time, like it's such a long story, but there was even a point of time where I was really depressed and I was thinking life's not worth living. And then I got into a massive car accident where I almost lost my life. And then, so my dad and I were both in that car accident after, and I described this car accident in a few of the other podcasts, but basically afterwards, I thought to myself, wow, no, I want to live, even if it's horrible, even if I can't move, even if this is what I have to deal with, I prefer this than being dead. So yeah, I just tried everything. I said, I was walking on the beach at one point and someone was looking at my feet and they said, that's gross. Look at all that blood and all that. That's just disgusting. And I said, this is not going to be me. I never, for once in that 3 years of suffering, I never once accepted that this would be me for the rest of my life. Like I didn't know how long it would take to cure myself, but I did not believe that this would be me forever. Because I really do believe that the power of, like, placebo is an amazing thing, but placebo is not the case for me. But the power of the mind is not to be underestimated either. I believe in this thing called, like, I was reading this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the whole book I thought was a finance book. It's not a finance book. It's basically, he talks about autosuggestion. So it's like think is in gold and rich is in the color red, because thinking is what is what makes the money. So he's like, if you think about it, and Will Smith says it, and all the most successful people have it too. Like Jim Carrey said he wanted to put like, I could just talk for hours about this. Like Jim Carrey wanted to put $1 million. He wrote a note to himself. I'm going to earn $10 million and whenever. Then he put it in his wallet. He said in 10 years, I'm going to earn $10 million. Then 10 years later, he was on the set of Dumb and Dumber, and people could call it coincidence, but like, I'm not saying there's something supernatural about it. I'm saying he manifested it in himself. Like he really wanted it, and he pushed himself to get it. And so that's, I mean, if you give up, this is what Will Smith says, those who think they can, and those who think they can't. And so I never for once believed that I would have eczema for the rest of my life. I said, you know what, this is temporary. I mean, look at Bon Jovi. He said, when I was young, he said, I'm going to be famous. I'm just going to be famous. And he obviously he's famous to tell the tale. So for me, I said to myself, I'm going to cure myself of this eczema. It's a bullshit idea that I'm going to stay like this for the rest of my life. I'm going to cure myself. And so it's just a matter of time until I find something to cure it. Even if 99% of doctors say it's not possible. And people like my friends who are studying medicine were saying to me, like, why are you not using steroids? Like, this is why your body's so bad. It's falling apart because you're not using the steroids. Well, I said, I'm not using the steroids because it doesn't work for me anymore. Like, I've reached this point of topical steroid withdrawal where like my body is just immune to it. It's tolerant. It's not accepting it. It's not helping me anymore. So if it's not helping me and it's still red and I have to go on to a higher potency, I'm not going to get to the worst potency. I'm just going to stop taking it. And so, so many things I can talk about. But basically, I never gave up. That's what I was going to say. In Dr. Kiltz's podcast, there was a crazy time where I even tried. I was thinking that it could be the increase in EMF, like call me crazy, but like the whole increase from 4G to 5G, I thought maybe that's what's causing my eczema to get so bad. For most people, it's fine, but for me, I'm really like intolerant to it. So Dr. McCullough, who's one of those quacky doctors online, like Dr. Kiltz, like, this is what people think. I don't think Dr. Kiltz is quacky. I think he's amazing. But Dr. McCullough was recommending these books on EMF, and he sells these things called EMF shields. So, like to illustrate to people the lengths I went at, like trying everything. Like I bought these, I basically built this Faraday cage for myself. So Faraday cages are basically like EMF force fields. Like you go inside them, like you can have these amazing experiments where like, I knew this when I did a mechanical engineering degree as my first degree. And so when I was in physics class, what they did was they put aluminium foil around your phone, and your phone's still on, and you try to call the phone, it doesn't work. So basically inside a Faraday cage, there's no electromagnetism, there's no connection. And so I thought maybe if I shield myself, and there's people online that actually genuinely believe this. It's really interesting actually. When you are in like a soup of radiation, like we are in cities all the time with all of this EMF. If you ever like go out to the country and there's not as much EMF, and you can actually, you do feel better. Like you have better sleeps, you just feel more relaxed because you're not inside the complexity of the city where there's so much radiation around you. And you do actually have better sleeps. I did have better sleeps myself. My dad and I, who both used the Faraday cage, we're both thinking to ourselves, wow, the state of sleep is just so much more improved. Like my dreams are insane. But the thing is that it didn't work for me because I had what do you call it? Reacted to the metal. There's a name for it. Atopic dermatitis, I think. Like a really, like the aluminium, so the silver inflamed me. And so I didn't give up on it just yet. I said, you know what, I'm going to try the same idea with aluminium, because I wrap my food with aluminium foil. I sprayed aluminium deodorant, should be okay. No, same thing happened. So I was like, no, I have to throw that away. So yeah, I tried so many things. I know this is a really long drawn out answer, but I'm trying to like answer succinctly
That's good.
and as quickly as I can of all of like, you know, this 3-year period, which was despair basically, and me desperately trying to find solutions. And I remember my friend saying to me, you know, you try desperate things when you're in pain, you know, and but I didn't think it desperate at the time. I was really logical about it. I said, I'm going to try it. Just like I started the Carnivore Diet, I'm going to try it. You know, people would think that's desperate, but you know, it worked. So who's laughing now?
Yeah. That's a powerful thing. Like, if it seems crazy from the outside, but if you're the one who's suffering, nothing is off limits. To relieve that suffering, you do anything, even apparently crazy things. So, and in the end, you found something that worked. So more power to you, right? You solved it. I was also struck by when you told these stories about how you found the conviction, and you said, this eczema, this is not me. This is not how my life is going to be. I think that's so important, to not identify as, to separate the disease from the person that you are, and saying, no, this is who I am. This is something that is not part of my life. It's not going to be part of my life forever. And to become that person that you are on the inside. That's
because it's very easy with today's culture of like accepting your body image. Like, you know, there's a whole dissemination of this idea that, you know, if you're overweight, or if you have issues in your vitiligo, or if you have issues with your skin, it's okay to accept your body as it is, and this is a part of you, and to accept it as your identity. And I didn't want to accept it. I said, I don't want to look like this, and I don't think you have to look like that. You know, if you go on the right diet, like I can't really speak on behalf if I was overweight, but if I was overweight, I would have tried the same thing. I would go on a carnivore diet, and I lost so much weight when I was on the carnivore diet. Like, I'm really lean right now, to the point where I'm trying to eat more fat to get myself to put on pounds. So I really don't think you don't have to identify with your illness. You don't have to. You can separate it, and you can cure yourself of it.
Yeah. Maybe a few more questions about the diet itself. For example, Paul Saladino is very big on organ meats. And I know Michaela Peterson, I think she doesn't really eat organ meats.
She doesn't.
Maybe liver once a year, but
that's right. She doesn't even eat grass-fed meat.
Right. She doesn't even eat grass-fed meat. Yeah. So what's your stance on organ meats, grass-fed, non-grass-fed? What are you doing currently?
Yeah. Well, to come full circle, when you're talking about apprehension when trying new things, like I tried like lamb that wasn't grass-fed, and I tried some few meats that weren't grass-fed, and I noticed a difference. Like, it's not affecting me severely, but there is an eliteness to grass-fed beef that you can tell when you eat it, and it feels better for me. You can tell the taste is different, and I feel it in my body too. And the organs are just great. Like, I just went to the butcher this morning. I've got a kilo of liver, and I know some people tell me online, like, you don't want to overdo liver. You don't want to eat it too much, because you can actually, it's so nutrient rich. It's so good for you that you can get vitamin toxicity. Right. Like, you can overdose on vitamin A just from eating liver. And that's a testament to how concentrated and rich it is in these nutrients. So, I mean, Paul Saladino says you only have to eat it like 100 grams a day, but I buy 1 kilo of like liver every 2 weeks or so, and you feel good. Like, when I don't eat liver for a while and I eat it again, it feels like I'm drinking water when I'm in the desert and starving and thirsty. Like, it feels good. Like, your body just like, the only thing I can compare it to is when vegans tell me they haven't eaten meat for years, and then when they eat meat, like they had meat for the first time, they were just ravenous, and they were eating like they couldn't even eat with a knife and fork. They just had to shove it down. Like, when I don't eat liver for a while, I felt like that. It was crazy. Right. I was like, wow, my body's just sucking this stuff in. I don't know, like, I get it that people like are psychologically daunted by the idea of eating organs. But I think once you get past that, like, I was never really daunted by that. If you get past that, you can really enjoy eating organs. Like, one, it's cheap because no one buys it because it's psychologically daunting. And, obviously,
Yeah.
like, ribeye steaks are like almost in Australia, they cost like $40 and they're expensive. You can save a lot of money just eating organs, and plus they're so good for you.
Yeah.
So, and they don't taste bad. They taste good. You cook it.
Yeah.
I even go so far, like, full disclosure, I go so far to eat liver raw sometimes. I know Paul
Yeah.
Saladino does that. I prefer, like, I say that because I actually prefer the taste. It's actually healthy for you. You don't have to worry about, like, I know you can talk about, what is it, salmonella and stuff like that. But if it's from a really healthy source, which I know I'm getting my liver from this local farm called in Australia, it's really fresh liver, and when it's
Yeah.
served, I can tell it just looks amazing. So, and yeah, so I try it raw, and the folate in it, and the vitamins, because a lot of people say the vitamin C, like, a lot of people are concerned of getting scurvy on the carnivore diet, and they say, when you cook the meat, the vitamin C is cooked out of it, but when you eat liver raw, that vitamin C is just all in it, all in there.
Right.
But, like, the vitamin C is not an issue. Like, as you probably know, as Michaela Peterson knows, and all the carnivore diet people know,
Yeah.
you can die of scurvy in like 3 weeks, and I'm still alive, and it's been 7 to 8 months, and so it's not a problem.
Right. How do you eat the raw liver? Or do you just drink it with water, or do you just eat it like and actually chew it? Because I've seen people just swallow it like
No,
a
I
capsule.
chew it. I enjoy it.
That's hardcore. Right?
Yeah.
That's yeah. I tried that, but I couldn't get it down. I tried taking it just with like just sips of water and just swallowing the liver pieces.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't feel that good in the beginning. And what I did now, it's funny that I think my taste buds and my body kind of slowly adapts, is
Yeah.
adapting
It's
to
like
eating
acquired
liver and
taste.
organs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. But what I did for now, which was really good, that I asked my butcher to grind the organs, the liver and the heart
Mm.
together with the beef.
Mm.
So if I'm getting ground
Ah.
beef, I have everything kind of in one one bulk mixture,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Like
just make like a
minced
burger.
organs. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, it's right. Yeah, and
If
the taste is less strong.
if I didn't enjoy organs, actually, I probably would do that too. I should just clarify, for those listening who are concerned about, like, scurvy, there's actually scientific clinical studies done on, like, I remember I was reading this study done on people who were in World War II prison camps, and they didn't want to, like, it's unethical, obviously, but they were testing what's the limit of people when they are not fed vitamin C. What's the limit before they get scurvy? And so they worked out it was 10 milligrams, I believe. If I'm not wrong, I should fact check it, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 milligrams. That's the limit before you can't you develop scurvy. And so there is more than 10 milligrams in beef, and this is why the Inuit tribes and the Maasai, they all survive on just the meat from seals and what they can get, because there's no oranges, there's no fruit up in the Arctic or whatever, like, sorry, in the North Pole where they live. And so, yeah, there's no issue there. In fact, some of the articles I was reading was like, it was known to sailors that if you were getting scurvy, you would eat penguins because there was enough vitamin C inside the penguin meat to remain, like, to be sustained. And so it's really not a problem at all if you are concerned about vitamin C or any of that stuff. Like, I highly recommend it. If you're going onto the carnivore diet, check out Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code. It
Yeah.
alleviates any qualms that you might have. It goes through everything from atherosclerosis to colon cancer to kidney damage to, everything. Everything. You, like,
Yeah.
not eating fiber. Yeah, you don't have to worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. Maybe, yeah, could you talk a bit about your future kind of plans, future diet plans, perhaps? Are you planning to reintroduce some foods going forward? What's your long-term plan? Are you going to stay on this diet? What's that going to look like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, what I've found myself doing in the last month is, I'm trying new things. Like, I tend to have a coconut and a few fruits like grapes at times, and trying apples. Like, apples, grapes, and coconuts are my three that I've tend to diverge from the carnivore diet and try those three. And at times I've tried sashimi as well, like salmon, because Michaela Peterson says that she eats that. And I found that it doesn't make me react too much. But when I eat them too much, in the sense like it's too often, I actually notice my skin starts to regress and my skin starts to get dry. And so what I do is I notice if I just go back to the carnivore diet whenever my skin starts to regress, it only takes like literally 2 days of just the carnivore diet, because I'm not eating it too often anyway, but 2 days and then I'm back to peak health again. So whenever I'm deviating from the carnivore diet too much, I just go straight back to the carnivore diet as like a it's not a punishment, it's a blessing. But it's like fasting. When, like, I know some people fast when they eat too much of junk food. They fast to try and cleanse themselves and get their body into autophagy and just remove all those damaged cells and the junk in their body. So that's what I do. Like, I do fast, basically. Like, I intermittent fast. I don't eat until about 2 o'clock sometimes. Like, around anywhere between 11 and 2, I always skip breakfast and have my first meal around 12 mid-afternoon on average. But yeah, that's my go-to if I ever deviate too far. Because sometimes, like, I crave, obviously everyone's eating all these beautiful cakes and stuff, and I look at it like, wow. I still get cravings, and so I think, I would love to eat. I don't eat cakes, I don't go that far, but sometimes I just get a banana and I just cook it on the pan, and that way it melts and it tastes beautiful. Like, it's got its own sugar and it tastes just like a cake to me. And so that's the limit I'm willing to go. But then obviously my body will flare because of that. So there's an element of not being worth it. Like, I have that, and that night I'll have to work out. Sometimes I have to do that to remind myself of because sometimes you haven't been in pain for so long that you think about, oh, what is it like when I have that again? And then you try it. Oh, that's what it's like. And I'm working out again. Yeah, I'm not going to have that for a while. So, but yeah, whenever I deviate, I just go straight back to the carnivore diet, and 2 days, it's back to the best health that I could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's so amazing, having this fixed point of control. Like, you have a
the
base
control,
you can come back
really,
to, and it gives you
like my origin.
It gives you a sense of control. Yeah, so important. Yeah, great. Do you have anything else you would like to share with fellow eczema sufferers out there who might be on this journey right now, trying to heal themselves? Do you have any tips, advice, anything we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think people like us on the carnivore diet are seen as very, obviously deviating from the norm, and even seen as quacky or crazy. I think it's not us that's crazy. I think we're living in a crazy world where, like, I'm just reading Sean Baker's book, The Carnivore Diet, right now, and he's talking about how he's, like, I saw it on his Spotify interview with Joe Rogan. He was basically, his medical license was like revoked or suspended for 3 years purely because he was recommending diet to his patients. He was recommending the carnivore diet to his patients, and it was actually curing them. And then he was frustrated that none of the hospital that he was working at, none of them really entertained his idea, and actually didn't, not entertain, but were making it harder for him to actually to encourage the diet. Like, they were going out of their way to say, we don't want this in the hospital, just do your work, don't encourage anything about a diet. So he went against that, obviously, and tried to push, instead of 8-minute sessions with his patients, he was doing like 40-minute sessions with his patients, and really going into printing all these pamphlets of like the carnivore diet and giving it to them. And obviously the hospital clocked on to what he was doing, and they suspended his license. And I'm sure if a lot of you may have heard the story, so I'm not going to like recite it back to front, but it just goes to show that the world we're living in is a world that is something clearly works, like the carnivore diet. It's clearly cured me, and it's clearly curing yourself and hundreds and thousands of people around the globe. It clearly works. And yet the hospitals aren't not just entertaining it. They're not just not entertaining it. They're going out of their way to actually demonize doctors who advocate it. We're in a society that treats this not just as crazy, but goes out of their way to hide that information. As I said before, with Paul Mason in Australia, with these, we didn't like the outcome of the study, and so we're going to bury this study. Like, they're burying science, they're burying truth. Like, so I guess my advice for people out there is, don't be afraid to try these alternate medicines. Don't be afraid of them, because I'd be afraid that, I went through the medical system for 20 years. How could you be so blindly trusting of the doctor when the doctor might actually not know what he's doing? He's just following the doctrines of what he's been taught for 10 years, and he just takes that as religious gospel, medical doctrine. But it might not even work. Like, Paul Saladino had eczema too. And he said, I can't recommend curing these people of eczema when I haven't actually cured it of myself. And so that's how he came to the carnivore diet. So be very skeptical, question everything. Don't just blindly accept what your doctor's giving you. And I know it's very hard. When we're desperate, it's very easy to just want to take steroids. Like, I took steroids until it didn't work. That's why I was forced out of it. And of course, I could have jumped into the next best thing, like an alcoholic jumping to drugs. And, I could have jumped to the biologic Dupixent, but I was very already phased by my whole experience. I was really, I couldn't take another 20 years of suffering, and I didn't know what Dupixent's relatively new. Like, there's no long-term studies done on it. They say, it lasts, like, we've had it for 5 years, but apart from 5 years, we don't know what's going to happen to you after 5 years. Like, it's blocking your immune system. Your immune system is expressing this eczema for a reason. You don't want to block that. You don't want to, like it's all happening in the gut, and you're releasing the toxins through your skin. You don't want to, like, put a Band-Aid, a plug on that so you can't release it anymore. That's why your eyes are becoming full of conjunctivitis. That's why your livers and all your organs are not failing, but becoming, like, not unstable, for lack of a better word. It's not healthy to suppress your immune system. And so that's why I didn't want to succumb to going onto Dupixent. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are desperate, who just jump onto it. So that's, if it's working for you, that's great. But, like, I'm just concerned that it's not going to help you long term. And of course, they're going to look at me and say the same thing. I don't know if the carnivore diet is going to help you long term. There's no long term studies on that. But the fact is, like, ancestrally, it makes sense. Like, thousands of years ago, humans were just eating meat. Like, most of the time, fruit wasn't available to us every season of the year, right? It was just during the spring and the summer, or if that. And so most of the time, we're just eating meat. This is what is ancestrally consistent with the evolution of humans. Anyway, I could talk about it for hours, but basically, don't gullibly believe everything that Western medicine has to offer, because it might not be right. As it didn't really work for me for 20 years, and I know a lot of people are suffering. 1 in 5 people have autoimmune diseases, and it's increasing at a rate of like, I forget the statistic. It's increasing like, I think 90% every single year. It's a crazy statistic. I have to double check that. But people are more sick than they've ever been. 1 in 2 people are dying of cancer. And people just go out of their way and say, death doesn't discriminate against anyone. People could just have a heart attack any day these days, or you could have, like, cancer. No, it's not really true. Most people have terrible diets. The standard American diet, the standard Australian diet, it's just horrible. It's just seed oils, sugar. They replaced Ansel Keys, replaced fat with sugar, and convinced a whole nation that sugar's better for you than fat. I eat fat. I ask the butcher for fat, and I eat that, and it's great for me. My LDL levels are through the roof, and I've never been healthier. Right. It's so counterintuitive. I really do believe we're not the crazy ones. We're just living in a crazy world.
Yeah. This goes back to not accepting your disease, or accepting yourself like next to the disease, like separating those two. Because are we going to accept as a society that half of our population is sick and ill and has autoimmune issues. Like, are we going to try to fix it instead of just accepting it and tolerating it? We have to first believe that there is a solution out there that we can find. So yeah, it's a really important message for people. Yeah, great, Bradley. This has been really good. Really,
it's been a pleasure, Marvin.
It has been. It has been indeed. Maybe where can people find you if they want to follow your story or see what you have gone through so far? What's the best place?
Yeah, sure. Best place for me is my Instagram. I'm usually on Instagram more than any of the other social media platforms. So my Instagram's Bradley Marshall Official, and I post it used to be a music page, so there's a lot of music there. So if you want just my eczema story, I've got another account called i.cure.my.eczema. But my main page, which I always post, is Bradley Marshall Official, and you get the benefit of my music plus my vlogs and talking about my skin. So if you want to keep up to date with me, I recommend going there. Apart from that, I've got like YouTube and I've got Facebook, but yeah, my main place is Instagram.
Great. Yeah, I'll make sure to put the links somewhere down below
awesome.
for people to find you. Yeah, this has been great, Bradley. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. No worries. And I hope you can get from 80% to 100%. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. I hope so too. Thanks for listening to this conversation with Bradley Marshall. If you'd like to follow my journey and the journey of my guests further, please consider subscribing to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and I would be happy about a review or any kind of feedback that you may have, because I hope to have many more guests on in the future and to continue this conversation and share this journey publicly. So until then, goodbye.